Welcome to the Luke Macias Show. We have several Democrats this week who have reminded us just how radical they are and how hard they intend to work to keep Speaker Dade Phelan and Chairman Burrows and Bonin in power. Also, one of Dade Phelan's own Republican chairmen came out and said he does not believe that Dade will be Speaker next time and that it's time to reform the Texas House. That's Briscoe Cain. Also, the chairman of the Texas Republican Chairmen's Association, who's a local Republican county chair, is defending and calling it good that a Supreme Court justice in Texas actually sided with people who want to transition little kids with surgical procedures. So we'll talk about that. Let's get to the show. The chairman of the Democrat caucus, Trey Martinez Fisher, actually his name is Ferdinand Fisher. Ferdinand Fisher did not seem to be a name that Mr. Fisher thought was going to propel him to the top of identity politics in a Hispanic Democrat district. And so when he decided to run for office, he started going by Trey Martinez Fisher. But Ferdinand Fisher is the chairman of the Democrat caucus and recently came out and just wanted to remind everyone that he has 64 reasons why Democrats will have a say in deciding House leadership. Now, what he's referring to there is the block of Democrat votes. And what he is saying is we have 64 members that are committed to Dade Phelan. So if we have 64, they only need to find 11 or 12. That could get us to the 76 number, technically 12. 12 people, right? So this is Democrats reminding Republicans, hey, we kind of help run the Texas House. Just FYI, just a reminder. Now, why is he flexing right now? Because he is worried that we are on a path to getting rid of Democrat chairs and actually changing the relationship status between Democrats and Republicans in the Texas House of Representatives. So the chairman is out there flexing, right? And while he's flexing, it's just a good time to remember just how radical some of these Democrats are. And I'm going to start the show today with a little clip of one of our favorite Democrat state representatives, James Tallarico, who recently spoke at a church. James likes to put himself out there as a religious person. He is somebody who affiliates or identifies as a Christian, but denies all of the orthodox beliefs that would define what a Christian is, right? I can tell you I'm a Christian and then tell you that, Mother Earth is also helping run the world and Muslims have a path in denying Christ to eternal life through the denial of Christ. I don't know. I could give you a bunch of different things, and I'm not going to get too theological in today's discussion, but if I were to deny the deity of Christ and the reality that he was who he said he was, which was the Son of God, and then he said, no man will come to the Father but through me. And that was his love for the world and giving that down. So these are basic precepts that make up what a Christian is, right? James Tallarico likes to identify as one, but then use that to kind of cloud or shield himself in this kind of universalist faith that he has. And but we're going to go to a clip of him recently speaking and use this just to remind ourselves a little bit of how radical Democrats are. Let's go to this clip.
Look around us. If this was truly a Christian nation, we would forgive student debt. If this was truly a Christian nation, we would guarantee health care to every single person. If this was truly a Christian nation, we would love all of our LGBTQ neighbors. If this was truly a Christian nation, we would make sure every child in this state and in this country was housed, fed, clothed, educated, and insured. If this was truly a Christian nation, we would never make it a Christian nation because we know the table of fellowship is open to everybody, including our Buddhist, Hindu, Jewish, Muslim, Sikh, and atheist neighbors. Jesus could have started a Christian theocracy, but love would never do that. The closest thing we have to the kingdom of heaven is a multiracial, multicultural democracy where power is truly shared among all people, something that's yet to exist in human history.
Well, that was a mouthful. So here's what I want to remind you of. James Tallarico comes into the last legislative session, and at the start of the session, he has an opportunity to decide what to use his seniority picks to try to get. Now, he's not that senior of a member, so it's not like he can just name whatever committee. So the seniority pick for a member is the one pick they get. Now, for conservatives, this ends up being maybe the one good committee they can get because Speaker Phelan will try to sideline those who fight him, right? And last session, not many fought him. There were only 3 at the start of the session. It was Brian Slayton, Tony Tinderholt, and Nate Schatzline, right? Nobody else was fighting him, so everybody else got at least a good committee assignment. But James Tallarico comes in and is one of the more radical Democrats in the state, right? He uses his seniority pick to get on the Juvenile Justice and Family Issues Committee, right? Which makes sense. That is a committee that has a lot of opportunities for some more liberal progressive policies that you want to push. But it's not that crazy of a committee when it comes to lobbyists and other issues. So he uses his position to get on that committee, which then means that outside of that, everything else he's going to get is based on what the speaker is going to give him, right? He has no other power or leverage unless the speaker voluntarily, I don't know where that came from, voluntarily gives him more power. And the speaker, knowing who James Tallarico is, says, you know what? I want that guy to have even more say on public education policy. So I'm putting him on the Public Education Committee. And then he says, I want this guy to have even more educational input into the lives and formations of the young people in Texas. So I'm putting him on the Educational Opportunity and Enrichment Select Committee. The speaker created a select committee on educational opportunity and enrichment and put Tallarico on that committee as well. And then took it a step further and said, you know what? I actually want to put James Tallarico on the most powerful committee in the Texas House, the Calendars Committee. Okay. We've talked about tagging before on this show, but I'm going to remind you what that is. Tagging is this informal practice that the chair of calendars allows members to do. There's no rule that requires them. There's not an actual power they have in this, but Chairman Dustin Burrows allows Democrats to tag a bill, which is a good conservative Republican policy that has been debated, brought up for a vote, and voted out of its committee. Maybe it's a Senate bill that was actually brought out of the Senate, brought to a House committee, voted out of the House committee, and sent to calendars. The only thing that's keeping this bill from going to the governor's desk is being placed on the calendar, right? But there's this informal practice called tagging where somebody like James Tallarico, because the speaker placed him on the calendars committee, can say, hey, metaphorically, I'm taking my finger and putting it on this bill. I'm tagging it. And then the chair of calendars will go, I'm going to let you delay this bill from getting set for a week. Now, nobody will say how the practice works because it's kind of this secret practice, right? But Speaker Phelan says, Mr. Tallarico, I want him to be in a position to be able to tag these bills, to hold these bills up, to work with Dustin Burrows to kill all this Republican policy, to speak into the lives of the young people through public education policy. I'm selecting him to have that input. That is James Tallarico. And that is how the speaker treated him. That is how he elevated him. That is how he empowered him. When we talk about ending the practice of Democrat chairs, the reason I use the term we need to change the relationship status with Democrats in the Texas House, because it's not just the chairmanships, right? James Tallarico is not a chair, but you can see how James Tallarico was selected, promoted, and empowered by the speaker far more than Nate Schatzline was, right? Far more than Tony Tinderholt. And so those are the type of problems we have that then lead to all these conservative policies dying that we talk about. So that is James Tallarico. And another reminder, this came up last session. Democrats were mad because we were passing more conservative policy on the House floor. And this was, again, the Senate's working, Chairman Matt Rinaldi at the time's working, everybody's pushing and putting pressure on the House, and they're breaking down and letting some conservative policy through. And so Democrats are kind of at their wits' end, which is funny because what we now know is there were 60, 70 very conservative policies that were killed at the very last minute. Okay, so Democrats still got their way. And you might wonder, why do Democrats shut the House floor down? Why do they start yelling and screaming and cursing? And because they're rewarded when they do it, okay? I'm going to remind y'all, some of you maybe don't remember the episode, I think it was back in April or May, when Armando Wally lost his mind on the House floor. So just to remind you, we're going to go to this clip, and then we're going to talk about, again, the type of people that Dade Phelan empowers in the Texas House. So let's go to this clip.
Being attacked on a daily basis.
They can't stand
I've been
on this
sitting
bill.
there my whole time listening to y'all. It pissed me off. None of y'all know this, bro. You're my friend, man.
All these
I love
cowards.
you, but this hurts. The that happens on these
Cowards.
hurts. I can't go hang out with my. I can't drive my brother, my cousin. Okay, I can't take them anywhere, bro. I can't go to a boiler. I can't go to a baptism because my community is being attacked. Y'all don't understand the y'all do hurts our community. It hurts us personally, bro.
Could have just let us
It hurts us.
Just let us debate it.
It hurts us to our core. And y'all don't understand that. Y'all don't live in our skin. Y'all don't, man. And that's what me off. I sit there. I've been a good soldier to him.
That's right.
To my own detriment.
That's right.
To my own detriment. And to cut off debate when all of our members are trying to have a debate, a civil debate. Nobody's gotten crazy. We're just trying to have a debate. Let the chips fall where they may. We know where the bill's going.
Yeah, we know.
Let us debate what we need to debate. Let us blow some steam. But that's I've been here 16 years. I've never seen that.
Cowards.
So that clip is from October 25th of 2023. October 25th of 2023. And so here's the interesting thing. So Armando Wally is talking about how he has been a good effing soldier for Dade Phelan, right? And if you're listening to this, which a lot of you do, I'm just going to describe this clip for you for a second. You have Armando Wally, and, Democrats are around him saying, hey, man, it's okay. We're fine. Come on, buddy. And he's yelling at Will Metcalf, Cody Harris, and Cole Hefner. Okay? 3 signers of the quote-unquote Texas conservative commitment, right? And these are members of Dade Phelan's team who have now tried to kind of get away from talking about reforming the Texas House, talking about how the House is going to change, talking about all the changes in leadership. They just want to talk about policy, the Texas conservative commitment, right? Now, why? I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Why are they focusing on policy and not process and not reforms? Because they know that they've been part of this structure that has gone hand in hand with Democrats, right? And this clip is pretty appropriate, having Armando Wally yell and be impassioned against Cody Harris and Will Metcalf and Cole. And he's literally looking at him like, come on, guys. We're running this show together. Why are we passing this bad bill that we hate? And they don't say anything, which is fine. Ultimately, they're like probably thinking in that point, like, look, we're passing this bill because there's no way we can survive without passing this bill. They've already impeached the attorney general at this point. They already have opponents, a lot of them. Cody Harris and Will Metcalf, not so much. But you know, they're sitting there going, dude, we're all under the gun. A bunch of people are ticked at us and we have to give them something else. We're hoping that passing this bill in October will at least give us a little more ammunition so less of us lose, which didn't work. So the question that you might ask is, well, what kind of positions did Armando Wally get, right? Where did he end up in the process? And here's what's interesting. So Armando Wally used his seniority appointment to get on the Licensing and Administrative Procedures Committee, and then was appointed by Dade Phelan to be the vice chair of that committee. When I go through Armando Wally's committee assignments, you will know just how good a soldier he's been to Dade Phelan.
Howdy, folks. It's Chris Salcedo from the Salcedo Storm podcast. You might know me from my TV show on Newsmax or my radio show on AM 700 KSEV in Houston. As a veteran broadcaster, author, and conservative political analyst, I've teamed up with Texas Scorecard to take a no-nonsense approach to the toughest questions Americans are wrestling with every day. Join me on the Salcedo Storm podcast, where I challenge the status quo and bring you fresh perspectives on the national, state, and cultural news. Tune in weekdays, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
So he uses his seniority. Dade didn't put him there. He uses his seniority because he's been there a while to get on licensing and administrative procedures. Now, you might say, well, what does that matter? Licensing and administrative procedures is probably one of the biggest fundraising committees in the Texas House, okay? Because think of all of these industries that are licensed. I mean, it's a great fundraising committee. Ken King is the chair. Armando Wally's the vice chair. Goldman was on it. Sam Harless, Tracy King, Abel Herrero, Jared Patterson, Matt Schaefer, Matt Shaheen. So you have a situation where a ton of these people are in great positions to raise a ton of money. But then he's placed as the vice chair by Speaker Phelan. So the one place he uses to get a seniority pick, Dade's like, hey, you're the vice chair. So I want people to know that you're one of the leaders of that committee. And then the rest of he is placed on House administration, which again is a 100% speaker appointed committee, a powerful committee that kind of helps rule or run the Texas House. You're only placed on there if you're very, very loyal to the speaker, okay? Cheryl Cole, Will Metcalf, Rafael Macias, Sam Harless, Cody Harris, John Kemple, Brooks Landgraf, Joe Moody, Angelia Orr, Armando Wally are on that committee. The Healthcare Reform Select Committee. So now healthcare lobbyists have to deal with this guy. The Artificial Intelligence Emerging Technologies Select Committee. He's put on there. He is put on appropriations. So he actually doesn't use his seniority to get on appropriations. He's just placed there. And then Greg Bonin makes him a chair of the Article 6, 7, and 8 subcommittees. So now if you're a lobbyist that's lobbying and trying to get funding in Articles 6, 7, and 8, he's the chair of that committee. So he's now chairing the appropriations subcommittee. The way it works is you got the appropriations and then they move out into all the articles and then Greg Bonin appoints chairs. So this is why I talk about the Bonin Burroughs group, right? Bonin makes him a chair. So, hey man, I know you're only a vice chair, but I'll make you a chair of these 3 articles on the budget. So that's why Armando Wally's in a position to raise a ton of money from the lobby, which he's then going to use to try to turn Texas blue. This is the kind of positions he's given, which is why when he talks about being a good soldier for Dade Phelan, he really means it. And he's been rewarded. But what Armando Wally is getting through to these guys is, it doesn't matter if you give me all these things. All these things give me more leverage and power and influence on this process, which I use to kill as much conservative policy as possible. But remember, and then when the Democrats lose their crap and then they go on the floor and they start yelling at their colleagues, they're reminding them, hey, don't forget, ultimately, this shared situation is because we get to kill a lot of these policies, and then we help you stay in power. That's the exchange. And that's why Trey Martinez Fisher is saying, I have 64 reasons why Democrats are going to help pick the next speaker, which is help keep. You could interpret that as help keep Dade Phelan, Dustin Burrows, Greg Bonin in charge, right? So while all of this is happening, Representative Briscoe Cain was being interviewed by Jason Whiteley on WFAA. Briscoe Cain is the chairman of the Agriculture Committee. He chaired the Elections Committee last session. So he is somebody who is close to Dade Phelan, has been a chairman under Dade Phelan in the past. And he was asked by Jason. Now, Briscoe's also in the Freedom Caucus. He signed the letter that said, I'm not going to vote for a speaker who empowers Democrat chairs. Okay. So you've already seen this happen where a lot of these people, 46 members, a majority of the Texas House Republican Caucus has signed a letter basically saying, I'm not voting for Dade Phelan's leadership. And not just Dade Phelan, but even if he tried to move the crown one head over, and then that guy said, I'm going to run the House just like Dade Phelan ran the House. I'm just not Dade Phelan. 46 members have said, no. It's no Dade and no somebody who's going to just do what Dade does. It has to change. And Briscoe is on that letter. Okay. So he was asked by Jason Whiteley, will Dade Phelan get reelected? And let's go to the clip and see what he said.
Does Dade Phelan get reelected?
I do not believe that Dade Phelan may be reelected at this point. I think Dade Phelan is a nice guy. I don't have anything personally against him. I actually think he's a conservative. But I do think that the time has come that reform needs to come to the Texas House, and that includes the speakership.
So, guys, this is really important that again, Shelby Slauson, Tom Oliverson running against Dade for reelection. Now, one of his other chairmen, Briscoe Cain, so Tom Oliverson's chair of insurance, he's running against him. Now, one of his other chairmen's coming out and saying, I don't think Dade Phelan's getting reelected. I disagree with Briscoe saying he thinks Dade Phelan's a conservative, but that's just the fact, because I know some of you who are listening or watching this will say, oh, Briscoe said the Dades are conservative. Okay, I don't agree with that, but I will tell you what I do agree with, that he's probably not going to be speaker, and that the time has come to reform the Texas House, including the position of speaker, right? And we need to recognize that it is a good thing that that conversation is moving in the right direction in the Texas House, inside the chamber. Here is a truth. It is going to be a member decision. The members of the Texas House of Representatives are going to decide if they double down on the existing regime, either in the form of Dade Phelan or in the form of something that looks a whole heck of a lot like Dade Phelan's regime. And that will be an announcement or a pronouncement from them that they wish to continue on the current course of conflict. And I don't think most Republicans want that. I don't think we need to continue on the current course of conflict. But the question is, will Giovanni Capriglione and Dustin Burrows and Greg Bonin and Cody Harris and Brad Buckley and Dade Phelan all double down and say, we're continuing? I don't know. We'll have to see. This is a very good sign that people like Briscoe are coming out and making the statements they're making. And we should recognize that, be grateful for it, and then understand that it is an indicator that, yes, Dade does not have the votes to become speaker right now. He absolutely 100% doesn't today. There was a moderate donor who was calling a candidate I know, and these are the way these conversations go. Lobbyists, other members, donors who are kind of tied into the establishment circles. Let's say you're a candidate running for state rep, and they'll call you and say, hey, I'm just letting you know, I don't think Dade knows where you're at on the speaker's race. And so it's kind of this like nudge, like, would you just call them and tell them you're okay? And so, yeah, often members will go, what are you talking about? I'm just trying to get elected. I'm trying to run a race. And well, no, I think you need to call him. I think you need to probably let him know. And it's like, well, Dade Phelan hasn't called me. Dade Phelan hasn't reached out to me. He hadn't asked for my vote. He hadn't done any of these things that I would think you would do if you wanted a position. But it's this power dynamic, right? Well, maybe you should call him. Maybe you should call Dustin. Maybe you should call Greg and just tell him, you're not against them. And it's all tests. It's all like setting up hurdles for you to then have to maybe potentially show them that you're trying to acquiesce to their current power, prestige, position. But even this moderate donor establishment type said, last time I talked to them, they said they were like 3 to 4 votes away from the speakership. And to me, this is what I've said. They need 12 people that will link arms and go to the floor with Dade Phelan and say, I don't care what the Republican caucus does. I'm going to the floor anyways. And they don't have 12 right now. They don't have 12. Dade's not even asking his colleagues if they will go to the floor with him. It's like, have you voluntarily told him you'll go to the floor with him? Because he hasn't called even his hardcore people and said, will you go to the floor with me even if I don't win the caucus? Because just that statement alone kind of admits they know they don't have a path to win the caucus. And once you start letting that go through the caucus, your whole support system just starts falling apart. So anyways, it's moving in the right direction. We should appreciate that and recognize it. In closing, I want to quickly talk about David Luther. And David Luther is chairman of the Texas Republican Chairmen's Association. Okay. And David Luther, Texas Republican County Chairs Association. So it's the association of all the county chairs in Texas. And recently, the Texas Supreme Court upheld our ban on sex change surgeries. Seems like a basic thing to uphold, right? But all but one justice, and Deborah Lehrman, who has always been the most liberal Republican justice we have on the Supreme Court, ruled that we were violating like constitutional rights of parents to chop their kids' genitals off. Very strange. But one thing I'm grateful for is that Deborah Lehrman has finally revealed that, yeah, she is really, really liberal. Because a lot of us know that, but it's hard to point to all the facts. Sometimes you don't have all the facts you need. So this is like my first opportunity to come out and just say, hey, Deborah Lehrman really is liberal. So here's what David Luther said, though. Again, this is the guy who supposedly represents most county chairmen, Republicans. He said, you may not agree with Justice Lehrman, but she is the only one who bravely stood up for the Constitution. She was on point with her dissent. We want constitutionalists when we agree with them, but not when we don't. Can't have it both ways, Rolando. He was talking to Rolando Garcia on the State Republican Executive Committee. So, what the heck is David Luther talking about? Well, here's the reality, guys. David Luther is a pretty liberal Republican, has been, and I appreciate, again, the nice thing is Deborah Lehrman comes out and reveals she's a liberal, and then David Luther's like, me too, I'm a liberal. So you should ask your Republican county chairman, hey, do you agree with David Luther and what he said here? Because this is crazy. It would be a good thing to ask your county chair that question. What happened with the Texas Republican County Chairs Association is when Rinaldi took over, there were several groups this is when the Texas Federation of Young Republicans left. They said they were going to leave and not come back to the Republican Party of Texas until Matt Rinaldi was no longer chair. Matt Rinaldi is no longer chair, but they still haven't come back. So the Texas Republican County Chairs Association, they kind of broke off and were their own group separate from the Republican Party of Texas. So these groups have kind of operated with the more establishment dollars and still tried to have names that give you some institutional prowess to take positions that are opposite that of the Republican Party of Texas. So whenever people like David Luther reveal who they are, it's always very helpful to the movement in general, and just continues to remind everyone why we work so hard to elect good conservative county chairmen. Michelle Evans, Beau French, Helen Hurd in Kerr County, some really good, solid, great county chairs. South Texas has some great county chairmen that have been elected all over the state, right? Brent Lawson is a friend of mine who ran and got elected as the Grayson County GOP chair. You start going down the list and you realize there's some great people. Lacey Riley in Denton County. I'm probably going to forget a lot of county chairs, so I'm very sorry. But there's great county chairs out there. And it's when people like David Luther say what they say that you remember why we work really hard to actually make sure that the institutional structure in the Republican Party of Texas is strengthened with strong conservative patriots. Don't forget that. Don't forget the importance of you being a precinct chairman. Don't forget the importance of county chairs. Don't forget the importance of the SREC. Don't forget the importance of the chairman and the vice chair and the National Committee man and woman. Anyways, guys, thanks for staying engaged. We are gearing up for November. We're also shifting towards the legislative session. And just a reminder, I kind of get into institution building mindset for the next little bit, because you're trying to think like what infrastructure and institutions need to be built up to ensure that we accomplish as much conservative policy as possible in 2025. And that's the way I want you thinking, like what are things we need to be doing now to help? That's why you get more involved in policy organizations during this time, get more engaged. You start kind of building up for the session. You start talking to conservative lawmakers. Everything is like gearing towards how much can we accomplish in that 5-month period of time. So just as you start to shift a little bit in your mindset too, you don't forget November, because we have great opportunities. Last week, if you missed the episode, I do talk about all the potential wins that are on the table, especially with Biden's plummeting in the polls. So you can go back and listen to that. I think that will be helpful for a lot of y'all to just get updated on and understand where we're at. Anyways, with that, God bless you and God bless Texas.
Do you want to get your news from people who share your values? Texas Scorecard. Real news for real Texans.